So hello there everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the results of features from the live stream that happened yesterday afternoon. Ultimately we are now just a week and 2 days away from the launch of F1 2018. So yes, apologies for the delay, but I've been working on Final Fantasy as well, trying to get that out. But most of the information about this, the most information we gained, I should say, from this stream is all about the regulation, when a regulation change happens, and ultimately you can see their morale plays a big part as well determining there. And you can see here's the screen now. You can see there's parts, obviously there's reliability parts because of the reliability of the parts maintained, because there's obviously going to be new parts coming in. So one thing that should be noticed is that if, let's say, you wanted to develop one of the, you can see on the R&D tree that they have obviously the minor upgrades and the major upgrades, and ultimately each of the upgrades, it's not like it is what's the words I'm looking for? They all matter. So regardless of even the little upgrades, they matter. Obviously they'll have a less effect on your car performance and how good they do, but nevertheless they still have that big impact that you're looking for. So one of the things that Lee Mather discussed, he was there along with Jenny, and Deo Greco was driving, so you'll see him later on in the video driving, because I've kept a little bit of his driving for some other bits. But regulation changes anyway, so it will highlight the bits that you want to do, and then you have to confirm, you have to spend resource points that you have on adapting the part to match the new regulations. Okay, so in this case it's Sashi performance, but and you can see that I'll give you a comparison of the performance, and there's also a graph as well. But one thing to note, you can see here on screen right now that you don't have to just adapt parts. Ultimately you can also go and do new upgrades as well. So it's getting that balance right. What do I want to do? Can I get this upgrade? Do I really need this upgrade to stay? One of the things that Lee Mather was saying, that you don't have to start from the start of the tree. You can, because let's say in that example where he's got 3 upgrades done on each of the little trees, the major upgrade, you can choose to adapt that and not the other 2 parts, which you can then go and redevelop at a later date. Now ultimately I don't know what the cost of that, because we didn't see any gameplay for that, but I imagine there will be a little bit of a cost involved, a higher cost than adapting it before the end of the season, so it's not ready for Australia. That will probably have to be a brand new part developed rather than adapting the old part to fit. Now ultimately, is this really what Formula 1 teams do? Do they really adapt parts? No, they go and buy out new parts, don't they? Of course, but every new season is a new part anyway. And yes, well, there we go. So it's a little weird how adapting parts, I think it's supposed to say, do you want to make a new I think what they're trying to say, what it should be, is make a new part that does exactly the same, that has exactly the same performance bit like Mercedes with their front wing. And obviously you can try and improve if you've got enough, if you save your resource points, which I still think I haven't seen any input on whether or not we have an option to cease our production of resource point spending earlier in the season around Singapore, Italy, whatever, for the season, and you'll be able to keep that amount and get bonuses basically on that amount, rather than having the engineer, because in 2017 Chris would come up to say, why aren't you spending any resource points? Well, I'm saving them up for the end of the season to have a mass spend. That was why. Which I did actually do them at the end of season 2. I did actually had a mass spend, but I never got the chance to, because ultimately nobody was watching that series anymore. But ultimately, is Carl going to now ask you questions if you don't update? We'll have to wait and see. What Carl's approach is with us, and whether or not we actually see more interactions with him, because in last year's game we see more cutscenes with our agent, with Chris, who's now Carl. So yes, that's something to think about. Or are we going to see the little pop-ups that we've been seeing? So yes, it would be good if Carl had an office to himself, like even if it was at like the back of the R&D thing. I think I need to. What I do plan to do is sort of do a video on how the paddock should look in an F1 game. And I've not been to an F1 race, but judging by what they've done in the past, this is only on that. So yes, that is really regulation changes. Obviously durability, there's always going to be parts of failure, but ultimately the different part, not all the parts will be affected. Obviously general wear is one part that's always going to be affected, because it's just a general thing. If you don't upgrade that, then you can use that durability. So that's a little bit interesting on how the durability gets erased. It should really actually get reset every time there's a regulation change, but I can see why. The general wear one is a bad upgrade. They shouldn't have that, in my opinion, because it affects everything. It affects the whole car. So it's not really. It's just they should really just have three trees of durability development. One for Sashi, one for air, and one for engine, and they should obviously sprout out depending on what parts of those three departments will go, because it's those three departments that ultimately get reset when we have a regulation change. So that would make it a lot easier, rather than having the general wear. Then we can know that the other bits of then they can, rather than having to adapt the parts for the wear, we just know that it's going to get reset, and we can work on building brand new parts rather than just doing adaptation of previous parts that we've already spent. So that is my opinion. Let's go and compare season 1 versus season 2. So this is season 1 versus season 2, and you can see that there has been a little bit of change. Ferrari is sort of closer on their bar. I'll show you the crossbar to show you what level they are. But just going on this comparison, you can see that Williams have dropped to last place in the pecking order. McLaren have gone ahead of Renault and Haas. They're not quite there, and they've obviously there's actually a little bit more of a gap between Ferrari. Have made a bigger step up in this particular version of the career. Force India though haven't really done anything, and neither are Toro Rosso. Alfa Romeo, Williams have gone downhill because they didn't spend enough on performance. But I don't know. It's going to have to wait and see what happens and how the AI do, because ultimately there should be a new part, but there should be a chance for other teams to make a huge step up. This is supposed to be a game, so like McLaren should be able to go from being the slowest team to being in the midfield, like, or rather Alfa Romeo. So like on Renault's level, it's just, if they're going to reset the whole thing like they're going to do, it's a little bit too realistic for my liking. It's supposed to be, yes, I know I go on the fact sometimes it needs to be realistic, but in this particular case, when realism begins to provide stale results, like in this case, in which case we need some more sway in the terms of being able to upgrade. So yes, let me know what you think about this in the comments below, because is this okay for you, or is this not going to provide enough of a difference? I mean, is it still going to make career mode too stale for you? So here is the performance graph. You can see that Mercedes really haven't changed at all. It's Red Bull who's made a gain ahead of Ferrari. It got closer, you see. This provides more of it. Renault have made a gain, but not as much as a gain as McLaren and Force India. You see, that's the issue with F1. The teams are far too spread out sometimes. You can see that Williams have made a nosedive. They're the only team that's made a nosedive, though. That's the thing. We need more teams to make a nosedive, to get it wrong, to not spend enough resource points. We need that AI error. Otherwise, if they're all making, yes, in some cases we're going to get to Mercedes where I haven't changed at all, but literally the only team that actually made a nosedive is the team in question here, which is Williams, which is controlled by the user. Other than that, Mercedes haven't done anything, probably just adapted all their parts. Red Bull have none. But is it a question about what did McLaren do? Did they upgrade? We won't know actually. And Haas and Renault have there needs to be at least one of the 8i teams, and preferably one of the big ones like Mercedes or Ferrari or Red Bull, making an error and ultimately sliding down in performance. That's what we need to see. Not all three of them being at the top there, because we want to see a chance to see Renault at the top. Want to see a chance to see McLaren at the top. Even if I'm driving for Sauber in my particular career mode, I still want to see different teams winning at the top to provide more flavour. And so when I eventually get enough resources to be up top, I know that it's not going to be the same bog standard being Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari that I'm going to be battling with. Instead, I want to know it's going to be potentially McLaren, potentially Renault, potentially Haas if they get active, Force India, Williams might even a drastic switch to being from bottom, the worst team to the best. Who knows? But it needs to be more drastic, and we need to see decreases in performances. We need big name scalps to fall behind these midfield teams. So yes, that's what I thought was the main bits to come out of the stream, was about regulation changes. It's showing us the main gameplay, hence the title of this video. But I have got some other things I want to note. Also, we've got some the ARS Management gameplay on screen right now. So it basically works exactly the same as the fuel lap. The fuel thing is Greco loses it and lost his front wing there. Ultimately, you got to save enough fuel, but like you do on the indicator, but at the same time you've got to complete the target lap time. It's a bit more like the tyre wear thing, because you can ultimately change the amount of ERS that you can use, that you are deployment. H is for harvesting, by the way, apparently. Also to mention some R&D points. Now appointed for results against versus your car performance, as opposed to being I think in the last game it was how many positions you made up, and ultimately you're going to get more for that. I think they got allocated 60 rules, or I suppose of 15, I think it was. So it's more about if you're overperforming the car like Fernando Alonso has been doing previously with the McLaren in previous years. So yes, that's something to bear in mind if you are going through R&D, is to make sure that ultimately your morale of the departments is going to affect the performance. So everything is supposed to intertwine with each other, which is a good thing, but as I say, there's always room for improvement. Now, multiplayer, oh dear. I think it's alarm bells, because Lee Mather said multiplayer is multiplayer. What can I say about it? Well, for starters, he doesn't want to admit that there was a fault with F1 2017. He hasn't actually stated if it actually works or not. Apparently there are more people working on multiplayer, but the way he put it in the stream, which you can go and watch it yourself, the way he put it just sounded so much like a management answer that I just laughed, because the fact matter is, it's supposed to be this positive. It's trying to create a positive idealism, when in actual fact, he needs to face up to the fact that multiplayer over the part in F1 2017 was awful, and it needed to be fixed. For F1 2018, especially with the esports, because there was even problems in the esports final on the LAN network last year, which of course they weren't allowed to speak about, because they had to all of them had to sign non-disclosure agreements about any issues they may have had, which Harry Jacks let out anyway when asked. I got a screen freeze, I think it was, or some lag, or something happened on the LAN for him. So yes. Still no significant. We haven't actually seen any gameplay of anybody going around, even on the LAN, just racing and multiplayer to see if it actually works. But apparently they're going to be working on the beta up until the day of the launch. Even though that guys, people like Arav and Tim Marduk, who, let's just say, are in bed with Codemasters. It's a phrase. It's not meant to be taken literally, okay? Before I get hounded for that. Are getting their early releases on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Why don't instead get those guys to actually test out the real version of multiplayer? I mean, there's 2 of them, that's enough for a multiplayer session. I'm sure they've given it out to more than just Arav and Tim Marduk. So yes, but one thing that has definitely been confirmed that's not going to be in the game, that really aggravates me. There will be no red flags in the game at all. They said they will continue to look into it, which basically means they're not doing it. That's what it means. I know that some of you will say that I'm being too hypocritical of Codemasters, and I should be saying, look, it's an improvement. I agree, it's an improvement, but it's not. They are still omitting fundamental things that are from the past. Split screen is still missing. I doubt they'll ever come back to an F1 game. But yet, there are several games that still actually have split screen enabled in them. But yet, no red flags, and interviews are coming back. So there's one thing on the list. So hopefully red flags can come back. But yes, that's all I have. My notes can now be thrown away because I've said everything. Just one thing to say. I'd like to, if you are, obviously if you not follow me on Twitter, because I've got more subscribers on YouTube than I've got on Twitter, I'd just like to say a huge thank you. Ultimately, if you're a new subscriber, thank you for subscribing. I'd also like to say a huge thank you for the support I received on the Twitter poll that I did. It's in the link of the previous F1 2018 video, so go to the playlist at the bottom of the description, and it is the second to last video that is in the playlist. There's a link there, or you can alternatively search for my username. My username, of course, is @_Phoenix84. You can go and check me out on Twitter and go and follow me. I will remind those people on Twitter, if you haven't voted yet, I will remind you guys later, maybe later, probably tomorrow, or maybe even later tonight, about the fact that tomorrow is the deadline. So if you haven't voted, if F1 2018 is worth is value for money at $54.99, you can let me know down in the comments below, and of course get in touch with the user content. But yes, let me know what you think as well as about the R&D. In two minds about it, whether it's actually going to work properly or not, judging by the gameplay I've actually seen. Ultimately, the final decision always comes down to experience. It's seen it myself rather than seeing it here. But yes, this is actually the 79 Ferrari for those of you who are watching on screen. This is Greco. He wanted to go on the 79 Ferrari. It's got some weird front wing going on with it. It's a handle to drive apparently, but for those of you who have full simulation wheel setups, for me on the HAD, it probably won't be too difficult to drive. But yes, I've rattled on for too long. Hopefully you have enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new to see more F1 2018 gameplay, which is coming out on the 24th of August in the morning. There'll be a video, and then I'll try and crack on and do a career mode video for the afternoon, evening, and then I'll try and catch up with everybody else. Depending on how many videos they've done, and I can try and catch up as well. Especially I've got four-day weekend as well, so that's the plan of action. But I'm gonna leave it there, and I'd just like to say a huge thank you for watching, and thank you for, if this is the last announcement, which there's supposed to be one more developer diary coming, but if this is the last announcement, I'd just like to say, for those of you who have watched all the videos about this, thank you for watching. Until the next time that you watch me on a video, whether it be the next video on the channel, or maybe 6 months down the line, or in a year, whenever I comment on another bit of gameplay, I'll see you next time. Take care, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.